The house that never sleeps. The house on Blackwood Street had a dark reputation. It stood on the outskirts of town, looming over the surrounding trees like a forgotten sentinel. For decades, people had whispered about it, warning newcomers never to approach after dark. Locals called it the house that never sleeps. Strange lights flickered in its windows at night, even though it had been abandoned for years. Some said they heard faint voices and footsteps echoing from its halls, but no one ever dared to investigate. Lena had always been fascinated by the supernatural, and when she heard about the house, she couldn't resist its mystery. A freelance photographer with a penchant for urban exploration, Lena decided to visit the house for a photo project. She thought it would be a thrilling adventure, a chance to debunk some small-town folklore. Her friends warned her not to go, but Lena dismissed their concerns. "It's just an old house," she said, packing her camera and flashlight. On a cloudy autumn afternoon, Lena arrived at the house. The sky was heavy with the promise of rain, and the wind rustled the overgrown weeds that had consumed the front yard. The house itself was imposing, its windows dark, its paint chipped and peeling. The front door, surprisingly, was unlocked. Inside, the air was stale, heavy with the scent of mildew and decay. Dust-covered furniture was scattered throughout the rooms, as if the former occupants had left in a hurry. But something was strange. There were no signs of vandalism, no graffiti, no broken windows. It was as though the house had been frozen in time. Lena began snapping photos, capturing the eerie stillness. As she moved from room to room, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Every now and then, she heard a faint creak or shuffle, but she chalked it up to the old wood settling beneath her feet. As the sun began to set, the atmosphere shifted. The house, once silent, seemed to come alive. Shadows lengthened and deepened, and the creaking noises grew louder. Lena's heartbeat quickened, but she convinced herself it was just her imagination playing tricks. She decided to stay a bit longer and catch the house in the fading light. That's when she heard it. A faint whisper, almost too soft to catch, coming from upstairs. Lena froze, her skin crawling. She strained to listen, and there it was again, a low murmur, like a conversation just out of earshot. She wasn't alone. Gripping her flashlight tightly, she crept up the stairs, each step groaning under her weight. The whispering grew louder, more distinct, but still, she couldn't make out the words. She reached the top of the stairs and found herself standing in a narrow hallway lined with doors. The whispers seemed to come from the last door on the left. Taking a deep breath, Lena slowly turned the knob and pushed the door open. The room beyond was a small bedroom, empty except for an old, rotting bed frame. But the whispering had stopped. The only sound now was her own breathing. She stepped into the room, feeling the oppressive weight of silence around her. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind her. Lena whirled around, her heart racing. She rushed to the door, but no matter how hard she pulled, it wouldn't budge. Panic set in as she pounded on the wood, shouting for help, but the house seemed to absorb her cries. Then, without warning, the whispers returned, this time, all around her, louder and more insistent. Lena backed into the corner of the room, her flashlight flickering. The whispers were no longer soft. They were angry, accusatory, as if the house itself was alive and furious at her intrusion. The temperature in the room plummeted, and Lena could see her breath in the air. She tried to push open the window, but it too was sealed shut. And then, she saw them. Figures began to materialize in the shadows, their forms barely visible but unmistakably human. Pale, hollow-eyed faces stared at her from the darkness, their lips moving in silent screams. They were the house's former occupants, the ones who had disappeared, the ones who had never left. The whispers intensified, filling her mind, drowning out her thoughts. "Leave," they seemed to say, over and over. "Leave or join us." Lena's flashlight died, plunging the room into total darkness. She could feel the figures closing in on her, their cold presence pressing against her from all sides. Desperate, she slammed her fists against the door, screaming for release, but the house wasn't done with her yet. As the night stretched on, Lena's screams echoed through the empty halls of the house that never sleeps. But outside, to any passers-by, the house was silent, its windows dark, its doors locked tight, as if nothing had ever happened. The next morning, her friends came looking for her, worried when she hadn't returned. They found her car parked outside the house, but no sign of Lena. Inside, the house was as still and lifeless as ever. Her camera was found lying in the hallway, the last few photos showing glimpses of shadowy figures and distorted faces. But there was no trace of her, and the town's legend grew darker still. Another soul claimed by the house that never slept.